Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's CJ, aka Carlos. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day so far. Very excited for today's interview discussion. I'm not going to repeat this every time I do a local base interview, but I think there's some importance to it. So, with that being said, I've always encouraged everyone through our podcast or our live stream to really get involved and stay active within your local elections. That includes either city council, school board, sheriff. Those things right now have the direct impact with your family, your livelihood. So for that reason, I'm kind of focusing in on my community, which is in Carmel, Indiana. Great Midwest city, by the way. For all of you who may want to consider relocating, look it on the map. There's also YouTube videos to do that. So with that being said, I'm very excited for today's guest. My guest today is Lori Long. Lori is running for the school board here in Carmel Clay Schools. And Lori is an experienced educator. She's been a teacher, an administrator, also an instructional coach for teachers, focusing on PBS and understanding how to use testing data to drive instruction. Lori is also dedicated as far as Carmel Schools as a parent and a community member, and to ensuring that child's safe, ready to learn, and the amount of everything that takes place within the school is effective for and maximizing education. So with that being said, I'm very excited to introduce Lori and bring her in to the studio. So Lori, welcome, and how are you?
Thank you. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing terrific, Lori. So I applaud your efforts in running for school board. I think it's something that it's very important right now, is for numerous reasons. So I want to afford you the opportunity, Lori, to share more about yourself and why you're running for school board with Carmel Clay Schools.
Sure, yeah. So you were talking about moving here. I actually moved here 4 years ago now. I found Carmel. God kind of just plunked me here. I was an educator for a very long time. I taught first grade at a school called Oscar J. Pope, and spent most of my career there. When you were talking about being an instructional coach, PBS Rt was something that was created by USF, and it's response to intervention. So it's helping teachers take testing data and understand how to drive instruction from that. And then I was very excited and blessed to be the administrator of a daycare and preschool. And I had incredible teachers, and the team of preschool teachers and I wrote a curriculum because we came from the school system knowing what our kindergartners were going to face in Common Core and Florida schools. We created a curriculum so that when they arrived in kindergarten, they were ready and did not feel overwhelmed. And so I have an 8th grader here in Carmel. She is at Clay Middle School and on schedule to go to Carmel High School next year. I have a wonderful group of friends here, and knowing my background and knowing how passionate I am about teaching and training and supporting teachers and being a parent and understanding from both sides of the, I would say, proverbial aisle of education. I'm a parent, I'm also a community member, but I've been through the ringer of education as an educator and administrator. And so I just feel like this was the next logical step in my career to really support our schools. I see some things that I love. I see some things I don't like and things I'd like to fix. But as a woman and a mother and as a community member, I have to stand in the gap, and I can't sit by the wayside and hope things change. I have to do my part to make change happen. And whether that's getting elected to the school board or just being a really dedicated community member and getting involved. COVID kind of stopped me for a little bit, but the world has opened up back again, and I'm ready to really just bring my gifts and my passion to Carmel.
Absolutely. Lori, thank you so much for that introduction. And through that introduction, you said quite a few things that really resonated with me. So thank you for that. And
Sure.
one of which is obviously that you've been a teacher before. You understand the quote unquote, like boots on the ground type
Yes.
daily challenges that are involved being a teacher, being a educator, and seeing directly how, whether it's curriculum development, whether it's parent involvement, how that directly impacts our schools. So I think that's terrific. The other thing that you mentioned in terms of just, having a child within our school system, understanding and having a direct involvement, I think that's just so important in terms of a board member, in terms of a board director. And to me, when we speak of that word of diversity, Diversity comes in lots of shapes and forms, and I think it also should be reflective in our school board as well. A
Agreed.
multitude of talented individuals, difference of backgrounds and understandings, and for the foremost, someone who can really identify and can affiliate with some of the teachers that are out there and addressing some of their concerns. So I really applaud your effort to run for school board. And let's talk about your priorities as a candidate, Lori. So I know on your website, which I will definitely, the link's already up in the video description, but share with us what your priorities will be in terms of the school board and the impact that you'd like to make in helping Carmel Clay Schools.
Sure. So I do come at this from an educator, once an educator, always an educator. And so you will hear people say across our nation that we have a teacher shortage. And we do, but we don't really have a teacher shortage because of lack of people who want to be quality educators. The issue is lack of support. They get overwhelmed. It's a job that you go through 4 years of college for. You do a student teaching internship, and then you stand in the doorway of your first classroom, and you sometimes feel ill prepared because you don't know how to work with parents as effectively as you should, or you don't understand the process of curriculum changing every year and keeping up with that, understanding student data. Test scores are lower now than they have been in Carmel Clay Schools. That takes there's a book called Measure What Matters. And when you look at test scores and you look at our students' results, we can identify a few things. Where are the gaps? What have they missed? And how we can help them succeed. So when you look at test scores, and I hand you a packet of test scores as a teacher, if you don't know how to use that data to drive your instruction, nothing's going to get any better. And so when I was an instructional coach through the program PBS Rt, response to intervention, I will share with you the school I was at was the first F school in Polk County, and in Florida your schools get grades, and we had a massive intervention. We went from an F to a B in one academic school year, which is a tremendous feat, and it came from people being willing to learn, willing to change, and willing to, as educators, give your very best and learn a new way to do things more effectively. I want to support teachers, and I also want to support parents, because as a parent, you don't know what you don't know. My number one goal as a mom is I drop off my child, she's safe, she's ready to learn, and then she has the opportunity to succeed. As a parent that was an educator, I am far more aware of some things that are going on, but some parents don't know that. And I've said across the table from parents who have said, I'm doing my very best. This is all I've got. I don't know what I don't know. I need you to help me know what I'm supposed to be looking for, what I'm supposed to be asking. So I want curriculum to be available not only to me as a parent, but if I'm a community member, what does it look like? What are you teaching? How do I get involved as someone who doesn't have children or just has grandchildren? It all needs to be very transparent, and curriculum should never be a secret, and you should be able to see what's being taught. And then as a parent, choose which level you'd like to be involved at. Do you want to be deeply involved where you're reading in the classrooms, or you're going in, or you're volunteering, or maybe subbing? Or do you just want to be really informed? So not only do I want to be an advocate for our students, but for our parents, and especially our teachers, because when our superintendent, as he's managing our teachers, he is an employer of people of various backgrounds and various levels of education. And teachers, unfortunately, but absolutely critically, are held to a higher standard. And we cannot in any aspect lower that standard, because we are creating the next generation of our adults. And if you're not 100% in as a teacher or administrator on making sure that our children are supported in all aspects, and I know we'll get to that question in a minute, then we're doing a disservice to our children and our community.
Correct. Yeah. Very, very well said. I think within the curriculum and curriculum development, there's many opinions as to what that curriculum development looks like. And it's pretty much a hot topic right now.
It is.
It's a very hot topic. And so my question to you is, because, I mean, if you allow, maybe that's not the proper direction I want to go with it, but in terms of involvement within curriculum development, In your opinion, what does that look like? What extent is there parent involvement with curriculum development? As silly as that may sound, and I'm not discounting, I'm a parent as well in Carmel Clay Schools, so I don't want to discount that, but you could ask 100 parents and you could end up with 100 different decisions as
Correct.
to what the curriculum is going to be. And at the end of the day, there has to be decisions that are made in terms of what we teach our children. And again, it's just one of those things that, like, and I hear like that said, like, parent involvement. Well, be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get 1,000 different opinions, right? So
Correct.
what, in terms of what drives curriculum in our schools, what are your thoughts in terms of what potentially that could look like? How should we ensure that our children are getting the proper education to prepare them for the real world experiences of either jobs in manufacturing and business and management?
You're
Go for
speaking
it,
my
Ryan.
love language right now. That's
Well,
my favorite.
I can tell you have a lot to say, so go for it.
So when I say parent involvement in curriculum, I do not mean that they are part of the creation process or part of the approval process. What I mean is the curriculum that is approved by the district, approved by the school board, is presented to our parents. You are right. If we brought every parent in and asked them to help us design and write and publish curriculum, we would never get anything done. What I want is transparency of what is being taught. There was a terrifying moment a few months ago, actually in the middle of COVID, when as a teacher, I was completely opposed to this, where if a parent did not like what was being taught, you would have to modify it for their student. And then a teacher would write maybe 22 lesson plans. That cannot be. A teacher has to be able to follow a roadmap. Now, as a teacher, I was always ensuring I was using all modalities, but I taught first grade. So if we're learning about something, we would march about it and we would sing about it and we would touch it. We would move things so that I could make sure I was hitting all modalities and supporting all of my students, whether they had special needs or they were working with a para. So that is very important to me as far as the curriculum, that once it's approved, it's able to be viewed. And I am only currently speaking about academic curriculum. Now, when I first moved to Indiana from Florida, I worked for a company called Employ Indy. Employ Indy is the workforce development board for Marion County. We work at the pleasure of the governor. And it is a tremendous company. And what we did was we worked with employers in Marion County, and I hope it comes to Carmel, where we said, listen, employers, you have massive gaps. You're struggling to hire. You have children that have graduated from high school who still need hours of experience. They need certifications. And in Marion County, there are high school programs where you can choose to go to any one of these academies within high schools based on your interest. They were strengthening the workforce. Well, we created a program called Talent Bound, and Talent Bound is about authentic internships with companies and industries within Marion County, so that when a child graduates from high school, it is not are you going to college or are you going to do something else? It is a viable, beautiful, healthy choice that they make when they graduate. And if we're backing into the workforce, if we're backing into lowering turnover and having a very, very well-prepared graduating class every year, we have to go way back, almost to middle school. And we have to bring our employers in and talk about industry needs, industry standards. What does that look like? And what choice you make, what path you go on. Not one is better or worse, not one is greater or lesser. If college is not your choice, fantastic. And that's why on my website, people ask me about how I feel about diversity and inclusion and things like that. Speaking very, very specifically to our children, who many of our children need extra resources to be very successful. I want all of our kids to be able to learn and grow and have those things in place, those accommodations in place. If your child has an IEP or if your child is in a special needs classroom, sometimes parents get really overwhelmed and think, well, I don't want my child to have a label. Well, a label in the school system as an educator gets your child's services and helps your child feel more prepared for an even playing field. So I want not only our kindergartners, but our middle schoolers, our high schoolers in this community and at the one high school and the various middle schools and elementary schools to feel like they have the opportunity to be exposed to many different types of jobs, many different industries, and what those pathways look like. And if I want to start my own HVAC company and then in 7 years have 7 trucks and I'm making $300,000, that is not any less than someone that wants to go to Harvard and study law, because every single person has a different path to follow. And in our school system, our teachers need to be prepared to honor every child individually and collectively bring them together. And that's where that parent involvement comes in. Because if I know that my child is really interested in something, I should be able to go to the teacher and say, listen, there's an issue with anxiety. Can we talk about that? I don't understand math and I want to help my child. How do I do that? I was looking at the curriculum of social studies. I don't understand how to help at home, or why aren't you teaching this section of history? Those are very viable questions for parents to ask without them defining or writing curriculum. So that's a kind of a very roundabout answer.
No,
I
no, it all made perfect sense. It's a delicate balance, right? It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
That's right.
But in regards to a couple follow-up questions. So one of the things that we hear consistently is that in regards to I'm a big numbers person as well. I don't think data lies. That's one of the things that numbers do not lie to you, right? So one of the things in terms of the testing standards for schools, one of the things that is always discussed as well is that, well, teachers get in a habit. Now I want to say habit. I don't hate to paint with that brush, but are there any concerns that become that part of the curriculum and the teaching is specifically catered to strictly the testing? Right. How do we ensure that it's not so much based upon either merit-based or reward-based system for our teachers that are directly reflective in those results? We've even had some situations where nationally there's been school systems that have been found where they basically falsified data to prevent from any state or federal funding. So what's your thoughts in terms of, how do we prevent or eliminate the possibility of educators strictly focusing in on the testing data and teaching to the data and the testing?
Correct. So this is what we all learned as a staff when we were going through the process, and how I trained our staff through the response to intervention. So you don't ever want an educator or a school to teach to the test. We don't ever want that to happen. First of all, you have to lay the groundwork in any assessment a child takes, whether it's a spelling test or it's an end of the quarter exam or it's a standardized test. No matter what that test is focusing on assessing, it is not defining them as a success or a failure. It is looking at, did we present the material in the way that you were able to master it? Did I hit all modalities? Did I explain it in the way, as your educator, my responsibility is that you have this mastery of this specific skill or skill set to move to the next level? And so many times the fear of an F or the fear of failure defines so many people. So what we did in my school, we tracked our data. The students knew their metrics. They knew what it took to get to those metrics. And then we had a data room, and every teacher was responsible. It was a lot when we were first learning, but then it became very much a part of our daily and weekly routine. Where is Fred on this journey to whatever the metric is we want him to aspire to? And then you learn as an educator, last year my class didn't make the gains I was looking to make. So as an educator, how did I present the material? So if I need to make 10 more points, or if I need to hit a certain metric, how do I refine my teaching? How do I refine the environment in my classroom so that my students feel and take ownership and pride in their learning process? There is a very ugly rain cloud that settles over the learning process, that if you don't have it right now, you're not going to get it, and other people are going, and so you must not be good enough, and then your brain goes into fight or flight and you stop learning. There's a tremendous book called The Growth Mindset. And if teachers and parents can really understand that you don't have it now, but you might have it tomorrow. And if I'm not explaining it right, and I turn the tables to my class and say, who else can explain this? Who understands what I've said? Who feels really comfortable with this thought? I want you to explain it to your classmates. Then it sets a precedence for a calm learning growth environment. And then we're not all focused on, oh my goodness, we all have to pass this test. Oh my goodness, this test is coming, and I'm if I eat breakfast that morning, and the fear and the trepidation that comes with sitting in a room taking an SAT or whatever the test is, it shuts your brain down. And if you know anything about how your brain works, if you are in that fight or flight stage, you can't learn, and you're not going to do well in an assessment. So we really have to change the mindset of, we are just trying to see how we're doing. And as a teacher, should you be rewarded for having great test scores? I think you should be deeply proud of how far your children came. But I will tell you this, I stood not toe to toe in a bad way, but with my principal, and I said, Margarita did not make the metric of 80% mastery, but the first time we took this test, she was at a 22%. The second time we took this test, she was at a 68. Those gains for her are beautiful. That's what needs to be celebrated, right?
Yeah.
So we have to kind of change the mindset of how we look at standardized testing and how the child feels about standardized testing.
No. Yeah. Is there any thoughts to about like holding children back, like due to academic performance? I've been told that it's not proper, that it's too detrimental to really hold a child back, like if they're academically not performing well. What are your thoughts? I remember I was held back in third grade. I can't remember. I can't remember the reasons why, but I was, and I think I turned out okay. But is there a risk where we just move kids through the system out of fear of social impact and concerns for the family and all those things? I mean, it's something, again, I think it needs to be, be discussed, and perhaps, maybe pivot the discussion a little bit, unless you have anything else you want to, contribute to that. But I think it just adds to the complexity of education that's occurring. I want to share with you an article. I think this is an important article that we can jump into real quick. Let me share my screen. And this is a recent article, and this talks about the staffing shortages that are currently happening nationwide. And this is an article through the Washington Post that specifically maps out. I'm sorry, I have to turn my head to my other screen to see it.
No, you're fine.
More than half of public school principals participating in a national survey reported understaffing as classes started in August, according to federal data released Tuesday that offers another sign of persistent employee vacancies in schools. 60% of those grappling with those issues said that they had been faced to open support staff positions since the start of the pandemic, and almost 50% cited unfilled teaching jobs. Principals also reported losing positions for teachers and staff. This is becoming very problematic.
It is.
We have the privilege or luxury here in Carmel, Indiana, that maybe we're not facing those things. But full disclosure here, my wife is an educator. I think that I've shared that in another previous podcast. But how do we ensure, like, to me, the ability of having tenure in our schools and replacement of teachers is very expensive.
Yeah.
And we've been told that Carmel is a destination for teachers, right? That Carmel's a destination. We don't need to worry about turnover. We don't need to worry about that. So what are your thoughts in terms of how do we retain the best teachers in Carmel? What things should we be doing? And as a school board member, what thing would you do to help influence the school board, the superintendent, that's something that potentially should be a focus on retaining our teachers in tenure? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I have lots to say. I want to say one thing about retention, and then we'll jump into this. Socially, I've seen it be very detrimental to hold a child back. The only time you would hold a child back is if there was a skill gap, and that can be made up with pulled out instruction and a lot of extra interventions for that child. So it's very embarrassing for the child, and it's socially just destructive if their friends are all in the next grade and they're back with emotionally, maturity wise, it doesn't serve them. So I think that retention is not a good thing, but heavens, if we identify that there are gaps, we fill those gaps, and we let them know that, listen, you just missed this little gap. We fill this gap, you're going to be racing with the racehorses, So that's my thought on that. Teacher retention.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Teacher retention. Okay. So being a teacher is certainly not easy. You have to not only, of course, learn educational strategies, you have to understand how to teach, you have to understand how children learn. You also have to understand classroom management, right? So we are losing teachers. The average lifespan of a teacher at this point is 4 to 5 years. And that is terrifying, because you go to college, you get your degree. Like I said before, you do an internship, and then you do your student teaching, and then you are a teacher. And then you get your own classroom, you decorate it, you're excited, it's beautiful. And then within 3 years, you're not making enough money, you're overwhelmed, you may not have the support that you think that you definitely know you need. And then you don't understand how to manage parent expectations and meet with parents. And so you become so overwhelmed that you as a teacher step away and you think, I can make more money and be less stressed. But the problem is, the really good teachers will never, ever, ever be able to not want to be helping children. So there's a beautiful balance of, the more you give teachers ongoing professional development, I will promise you this summer in school systems all across our nation, thousands of teachers showed up for no extra pay to learn new skills or to learn new things about curriculum or programs for their children. And I don't speak for every teacher, because there are some people that are teachers for the wrong reasons and they should not be teachers. And I hold teachers to a very high accountability level. But what we have to do is we have to understand that teaching is not easy. And it's lower pay than many other things. And I believe it should be much higher pay. But we have to teach teachers how to be people managers. We have to teach teachers how to work with a parent that's angry or frustrated or scared, and they're lashing out at a teacher, and a teacher doesn't understand how to calm that down, refocus the meeting, and work with the parent as a partner. Teacher retention has to be a focus. We will go nowhere in any district in this nation if the teachers continue to quit. Because when you have a staffing shortage in any industry, your expectations are lowered. You're like, well, let's just bring them in and we'll train them and we'll give them the training they need. That is not a way to improve test scores or how we train our students or how we provide for our students. Teachers have got to be given far more support. And I heard someone say the other day, oh, our kids, the number of kids are here and the number of staff is rising. In my book, that's okay. And I will tell you why. In a classroom, if there is a teacher that doesn't have a para, when you teach all day long, what are you doing? And you know this because your wife is a teacher. What are you doing in your evenings and on your weekends? You're grading papers, you're writing lesson plans, you're changing bulletin boards, you're doing all the things you need to do for your classroom, because when you are teaching, there is no time for that. There's no time for that. So I'm doing 2 jobs and then I get overwhelmed and then I just throw my hands up and I say, I'm out. So we have got to do a better job collectively of supporting our teachers. That is the way to turn to lower turnover, 100%, where they feel valued and they feel like they have room for growth, and that they're understood that job is not easy. And we want to make sure you know that we're doing everything we can to bring your community and the parents of your students alongside of you so we can work collectively together.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I had suggested, because I come from the background of corporate America and understanding a lot of how those things work, and then implying or applying some of those things that, learning through corporate America, or some ideas as to, teacher retention. Would you support the idea of exit interviews with teachers who
Oh,
leave
absolutely.
Carmel Clay Schools? Because I don't know if that even exists right now.
I don't know either, but
But go ahead.
they're detrimental. You know this. I need to know why you're leaving. And I need you to, even if it's, you don't even have to tell me. If you want to write it down, send me an email. But I need to know with bare bones truth, pull back every curtain. Why are you walking away? Was
Yeah.
there anything I missed? What could I have done better? What could your school system have done better? Tell me everything with no judgment.
Yeah.
Exit interviews are important, and ongoing mental health wellness check-ins with your teachers are very important, because if it's February and I can save you as a teacher before the summer, that's a critical time to intervene with the teacher and go, okay, I see that you're ready to walk. Before you start getting on Indeed at night and I don't know you're ready to leave, what can I do better? What can we do better? And I met the superintendent, currently invited every person running for the school board to meet with him, just to have a one-on-one meet and greet. And I said to him, the thing that I would change is when I was a teacher, if there was a school board member that came to our school, it was like, oh, they're coming. Make sure my classroom's extra tidy. And oh my, I don't ever, whether I win or lose, whatever, I will always be involved with my child's education and supporting teachers. But if I walk into a classroom or a school, if I'm reading a book or if I'm just meeting with the teacher, I want them to know that their advocate has arrived. I'm there for our kids to feel loved and supported.
Yep.
And for our teachers to feel loved and supported. And as a board member, you should never walk into a school that people are overwhelmed or intimidated because you're there. Now, be happy that you have an advocate there. And of course, always do your best and make sure everything that you're doing is to your highest ability level. But man, if you see me in Kroger and you want to talk to me about something, let's do that, because that's communication is where we fix things and improve things,
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's important to occasionally self-assess. It's something that I didn't do it this past year but what I always like to do as far as being in management was to self-assess upon, results, because results matter. So I would identify what I felt that accomplished, what I left on the table.
Yeah.
And part of that self-assessment should be part of the feedback that's received. And so I think, it doesn't have to be done every year, maybe twice or once every 2 years type 360 or feedback. And that could be help guide the Carmel Clay School systems, not only the board, but also the administration in regards to some of the things that they're doing well, some of the things that are left on the table. And that would be kind of what I would define as a 360 survey among educators in Carmel Clay Schools. And I don't think that exists. And it's something that I would advocate for.
Yeah. I don't think it does either. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think it'd be, go ahead. Because
it's
basically the business, right? Like school corporations are a business.
It is business.
It is business. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know you got a lot to say. Go ahead.
The thing that I think the most powerful question to ask teachers and students are, what are my blind spots? What am I missing? Because I may show up every day as the superintendent or a teacher or the principal or an assistant principal thinking I am doing a marvelous job. And everybody in the school knows that I have blind spots. And one of the worst things to do as a leader, and you know this, and I know this from different things that I've done, is to allow people that are not doing a good job to remain. And it looks like you're doing your job as an administrator if you have an employee who is not being held to the same standard. And so when you, as a leader, and in this business of education, our commodity are successful students. And that's what makes everybody lay their head on their pillow at night and be really proud of what they do. And if I am missing something as a teacher, as a student, as an administrator, as a superintendent, and I cannot accept polite, constructive criticism, then I need to step down and I need to step away. Because if you say to me, Lori, there's a massive issue. I don't know if you see it. I don't know if you understand, but there's a gap and you're missing this, and everybody knows it. And I will tell you, teachers talk, employees talk, parents talk. And, somebody was saying something the other day about not being allowed to speak up at a school board meeting, but tensions run high and parents love their children and are very protective of their children. It's their whole world. And when you're angry and you feel like you're not being heard, or you feel like your voice doesn't matter, what do? We all get louder. So in an argument, you just get louder. And instead of listening to respond, you're listening until you get to talk. Instead of listening and taking it in and giving me a moment and letting me process it, and then I can respond to you, that's reflective listening. And a lot of times, as an employer, as a principal, as a teacher, you have to be given the chance to say, okay, here's the criticism I have, negative or positive. Here's an issue. How do we fix it? But we have to take the negative connotation off of it. And that goes all the way back to test scores. Or your kids did not make the gains they were expected to make. Let's problem solve on what the issue is. Or there's a teacher that's doing stuff that's not right for our children. They're very demeaning, or they speak to our children in a very ugly way, or this child has reported to their parent has talked to me as a principal that their teacher said something insulting to a child. Well, that needs to be something that has to be dealt with, but it has to be dealt with in the proper manner. And so many times as employers, we either are uncomfortable as leaders to hit it head on, and we try to skate around it. But there has to be open, honest, transparent communication on things that are going well and things that need to be fixed without the samurai sword, as I call it, of judgment, where you feel like I have just knocked you down at the knees and now I'm shaming you and I'm mad at you. When we're all going to make mistakes, we're all going to do things wrong. Fail quickly and let's move forward correctly through some assessment.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's it can't all be good news, Lori,
No,
right?
it
It can't all be good news. And one of the true signs to me that's always reflective upon a leader is being able, one is to acknowledge mistakes, right?
Well, let me tell you something funny about that, about a mistake. So I had kind of set up my website and I had kind of set up all my stuff, but I wasn't really paying attention to the clock ticking down to everybody knowing who's running officially. Well, I was writing my own copy on everything, doing my own website. Everything was completely on my own. And of course I work and I'm a single mama. And so I thought I had edited it very well, but I made a glaring mistake. And what was interesting was social media just absolutely just
they will light you up. They're not kind. They're not kind.
Lord. And so, I was sitting at a Carmel football game and I was reading and I thought, oh my heavens, it said I've been teaching for 35 years instead of 25 years. And she started teaching when she was 11. I'm like, no. And so, I owned it. I was like, listen, I apologize. And then on my campaign sign, it said Carmel Clay County Schools. And I was like, she doesn't even know what county she's running for, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I will, the mustard on my shirt, I'll wear it. I apologize.
That's awesome.
To edit your own work. But in that, it started some really cool conversations of, send me an email. Let's talk about it. I will share my heart with you, whether you vote for me or don't vote for me.
Right.
Come talk to me. It created some buzz. So in that failure and in my lack of making sure everything was exactly precise or having one of my friends edit for me, that was my stub toe moment in this campaign so far.
And I think that builds to connecting with people in general, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of, and one of the reasons why, the media content that we do with my network, whether it's here on my own channel or with Rogue, we do everything live. Yeah. We don't edit one thing, and people are just amazed by that, because I think people resonate with that. Like if I do something silly on a stream, or
right.
I say something and mumble my words and everything, like that's being human. That's going to happen.
Correct.
And we don't edit one thing. We put it out there, one, because I hate editing. I truly do. It's so time consuming. People don't realize to render a video and edit and redo it. It's just too time consuming. So I don't do it. So yeah, I completely understand that. But and when we make a mistake, we own it. I made a big one the other day when I was doing a stream and forgot to toggle on one of our main platforms that we stream to, and people were like, why wasn't it there? I couldn't even catch. I'm like, well, because I forgot to hit the button.
My bad. Sorry.
Laura, I want to afford you the opportunity, because I've been drilling you down with questions, and I appreciate you answering everything. But I also want to afford you the opportunity to, through this stream, to share about anything that we didn't discuss, and then obviously plug your website, how people connect with you, anything that you want our listeners in the Carmel community to learn about yourself and why they should vote for
Sure.
you for school board, Lori. So go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this will be in far more detail on my website, but the two things that concern me most as a parent are that our children are protected in all facets. So there are a lot of things that are in this world that are mainstream thought and ideas, and I feel like our children are overly exposed to things of a sexual or inappropriate nature. And I think that that is something that we have to ensure that our children are protected from. And as a parent of a middle schooler, an eighth grader, I can't believe my baby bug is an eighth grader, but I want her to be educated scientifically at school on health and reproduction and things like that. But I also, as a parent and transparently as a Christian and a conservative, I want to make sure that I am the main voice for things like that for her. And I don't want any parent or any family in this district or any district to feel like they can't send their child to school without them being safe in all facets. I think we need to talk very openly about predatory behaviors of adults in children's lives, how to stay safe in many facets. I think those are more important discussions to have in a health class than choices or things that we do as adults in the privacy of bedrooms and in relationships. I just think that that's a parent decision, and I really am an advocate for protecting our children deeply. And then the other thing, the critical race theory, that's a hot topic across our nation. And I will tell you very, very, very honestly, I grew up an Army brat. My father was a West Pointer and he was a career military man. He was airborne ranger, and I lived all over the United States. And I was just surrounded by cultures and different ethnicities and people from all over the world. One of my friends in middle school had just come from Romania. I got to live in Miami and learn all about the Cuban culture, which is my favorite food, and it's a beautiful culture. And I just was surrounded by people of so many different backgrounds. And has our country made some mistakes? Yes, we are all nowhere near perfect. Do I want my high schoolers to learn about the history of the world and how we can make it better? Yes. Do I want my my elementary school students to learn the beginnings, age-appropriate parts of history? Yes. But do I want any child of any race in our school to feel less than or attacked? No. So I just feel like that's something that it's not currently taught in Carmel Clay Schools. And I did, a person sent me an email the other day, and I did add to my blog my thoughts on all of this in a much deeper way. But I just want every child that walks into a school in this county to feel honored, safe, valued, that their culture is important. I'm a child of the Reagan era, and I remember as a young person talking about the great melting pot. And even as a child, I thought, that doesn't make any sense, because then we're the same goo, and I don't want anyone to lose their individuality. So, I would teach my students, we're like a fruit salad. We come together, make this beautiful thing, but nobody loses their individuality. And then I said in the article, and that's why this is so top of mind, my favorite book that I read on the first week of school every year was Everybody Cooks Rice. And it's about this brother and sister that go around their neighborhood, and every family is making dinner, but every family is from a different culture, and they're all cooking rice, but in a completely different way. And so I think equality is critical, and that every student is valued for who they are and their culture is valued as important. I don't want any child to sit in our classrooms at any point and feel like they are lesser than. And the only other thing I will say is mental health is on the decline in our nation, adults and students alike. And we have to make that more of a priority, whether it's self-identity, whether it's gender equality or race equity, or whatever it is. We have to do a better job at when a child comes to school, they are not hiding in a corner where they feel alone and invisible and unseen, and that takes intentional work by all staff. Because I've seen a kid absolutely become best friends with janitors. I've seen a cafeteria lady be a kid's best friend. I've seen a principal, when they get pies in the face, and kids think that's the coolest thing. If you read 7 books, you can put a pie in my face, and they'll do 20. I had a little boy named Tian that for an entire school year, he had to touch whatever I was wearing. So it would be the hem of my pants or the hem of my shirt. And I eventually had to just let him, he just became he just stood there. And wherever, he just needed that.
Yeah.
And so whatever our kids need and however their cultures need to be honored, we have to be intentional about that. And as they go from learning all about me in kindergarten to all about my family and all about my community, it's this circular graph that goes out. And so by the time we're in high school, we need to have those very, very critical discussions. And in college and beyond, that's a very important discussion to have. And I want to mold our students so that when they go forward creating the lives that they want to create, there is no division. Division is the spreading of hate and discontent and meanness. And we need to make it a focus of our schools. I love the Stop It app to avoid bullying, but that's a great resource. But it also needs to be a poignant, pull back the curtain every day. If you see it as a student, a parent, an administrator, we have to stop the division, and we have to stop the putting everyone in groups and defining them by whatever features. We have to say, these may be what define you, but you know what? That doesn't exclude you or include you. This is just, I have brown hair. I'm not going to put all the blondes over here and all the brown hairs over here and then be like, because those are things that's not okay. And so going forward, I just think that if I have any effect over how our kids are taught how to be kinder and better citizens, then that is what I want as an additional focus, to hold our teachers accountable and our kiddos accountable. And you just have to talk about it. What you measure matters. Data, behavior, all of it. So we just have to be really transparent, and then invite parents to really be part of the process. Whether you want to just click through and look at things, or you want to be reading books, or you want to just be at a meeting, you have to feel valued and part of the process, kind of along the continuum of education. Yeah.
Lori, we may very well have to do a part 2 to this discussion because what you just said was just so important on a multitude of things. So yeah, I completely understand and appreciate your comments, and I invite all of our listeners to learn more about you. So Lori, if you can share with our listeners where they can find your campaign site. Obviously the links are in the description, but I know that you participate in a couple of different social media platforms. So if you could share that with our listeners, that would be great.
Sure. And I hope your screen isn't freezing. Mine has me frozen in a weird face. So hopefully I'm not frozen on your screen. But I am on Facebook for Lori Long for Carmel Clay Schools, District 2. And then on my website, as you can see, it's Lori Long for School Board 22. And I invite you, please, whether I seem to be your cup of tea or whether you completely vehemently disagree with me, let's have a conversation and send me any questions, because the best way to get things done and accomplished is to talk about it. And I will honor your opinion as you honor mine, and we will come forward together and move together. So send me a message on Facebook, send me an email through my website. And if you see me out and about, you're more than welcome to ask me any questions there as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Lori, thank you so much for a fabulous discussion today. And just so our listeners are aware that I've also have invited other candidates for Carmel Clay Schools to participate and do an interview as well. So there's no systematic way in terms of how I've been interviewing candidates into Carmel Clay Schools. I did get actually a couple of email responses already, so I will continue the conversation to kind of share with our community, because I think it's just that important. So, Lori, thank you so much for joining the discussion. I wish you the very best of luck with your running, and hopefully some point we can meet in person, just not virtually.
Yeah, I love that.
So thank you so much, Lori, for joining the stream. I appreciate you.
Thank you. everybody. And really, as people are listening, really dig in and listen, because there are some phenomenal people running. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
absolutely. All right, there you have it, everyone. Lori Long for School Board Carmel Clay Schools. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Do me a favor before you exit this live stream, share it. Share it, and whether you're a listener here in Indiana or maybe another state, I think it's truly at this point, at this juncture where we are, where local elections are so important, to avoid the static of the federal level. It's okay to listen to it and all that kind of good stuff, but if you want to think about something that directly has an impact within your community, it's your city council, your school board, your sheriff. So get engaged, stay involved, and that's my effort. What I'm doing here, and I'll inform Lori of this after we're finished with this stream. But I'm also going to work with try to attempt to reach out to Carmel Clay teachers, and then also the community, of doing a virtual town hall where I'm going to be inviting candidates who are running for school board, and then also asking for community members and also educators to email me questions of what they want to ask the school board members, and seeing how many we can get to participate in a live stream. So keep it loaded. I won't say lock and loaded. That's not maybe for education. That's the right thing. But keep it right here on my YouTube channel, social media platforms. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Carlos, aka CJ, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.